Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to yet another Loreweek. We actually have some news to talk about, although ironically, I don't have much additional news to talk about said news. It's almost like I've already done a video about the big news that happened this week, so I don't really have anything additional to add to the big news that happened this week. So, strange how that works out, yeah? We are, however, not going to do our usual let's wait around for 8 minutes thing. Stuff will still be up there, but we're not going to wait. We are, however, going to adjust the webcam because the lighting today is a little different than usual. No? No? There we go. So, hello to everyone. Lurker and Golvag, who've been on for a bit now. Darkrai, Bregwin, Feelgood, Zeiss. Make sure you get your roots in if you care. Let's talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. Here's what we know about Red Dead Redemption 2. It's called Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's not coming out for a year. That's actually going to be tied into a later announcement. I actually asked a few friends of mine what they thought of the RDR2 trailer, or teaser, to be more accurate. And they all had the exact same thoughts I did. This is not a joke. Their thoughts were, along with mine, well, it looks pretty, but it doesn't tell me anything. Again, I'll talk more about that later. The Nintendo Switch was announced this week. It's going to take a while to get used to that. Oh, shoot, I should do that. It's going to take a while to get used to calling it the Switched. That's just weird, but, you know, whatever. The Switch. Got to send out a push notification. I really am trying to get better about these because I have to do them manually. There we go. Switch. Again, it's going to take a little while to get used to calling it the Switch. But regardless, I actually did pretty much a full analysis video on that. That's actually already up on YouTube on my Zagmazel channel, so you can go check that there if you'd like to. Regardless, and someone just commented on one of my videos. Regardless of that, though, we have had a couple of additional details, like there's no plans for backwards compatibility, and the fact that they do not intend, the intent is not for the the Switch, to replace the Wii U or the 3DS. In my opinion, that is a mistake. But, at the same time, I kind of get where they're going with that. And I don't like it. So I doubly think that's a mistake. Hey, it's the traitor! The Crypto Knights! By the way, hello to everyone who just poured in HGC, Takoida, Mr. Darkness, Darkrai, Corleth, 1988, Dylan, Sean, and of course the traitor, Crypto Knights. Oh yeah, by the way, I decided to wear this in support of my Canadian brethren, since Canada is not actually a civilization yet in Civ 6. King Bubble, what's up? So yeah, I do legitimately, hey Grey Wolf, I do legitimately think that what they're doing with Switch is a bad idea. And I'm going to talk about that briefly because this is purely marketing speculation, okay? Let me add a big asterisk to this. This is speculation. If their intent is for this to not replace the 3DS or the Wii U, this is going to sound weird, but this is them trying to enter the console market. I'm actually have a discussion today about the console market and some issues with it. But regardless, that is my prediction, that they're going to have the handheld market with the 3DSs. I don't know what they're going to do with the Wii U. At the moment, they're kind of abandoning the Wii U in general, so they're probably not going to push the Wii U that much. But the 3DS is still going to be the handheld, and the Switch will be the console. If you don't understand what I'm saying, the Wii U is not a competitor in the console market. It is basically a separate thing from the console market, from the console wars, and has been for a few generations now, for good and for bad. Some people think that's a good thing, because it basically means the Wii U is its own thing. You can get that as well as a PS4 or an Xbone, but it's very rarely a choice between, do I want a Wii U, an Xbone, or a PS4? It's a choice between, do I want a PS4 or an Xbone, and then I get a Wii U. That's what I mean. They're trying to enter the market with the other two, and I do think that is a mistake. Moving on. And I will be talking about that later. There was a Guardians of the Galaxy 2 teaser that was released. It is, of course, just a teaser. Very little information is released, and yet somehow they managed to release more information in the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 teaser than the Red Dead Redemption 2 teaser. Because we know that there's going to be another fairly large-scale threat. We know that they are already well experienced, so this is going to be taking some place after the first movie. And we know it still has humor. You need to find someone who is as pathetic as you are. But it's not said with any negativity. He's not insulting him. He's just saying that you are pathetic, quite honestly and openly. Therefore, you just need to find someone who is as pathetic as you. It's very logical, right? We've also seen the Logan teaser. Now, actually, we got a surprisingly large amount of information from the Logan teaser. For those of you not aware, Logan is Wolverine 87? I think it's 3, technically. Even though Logan, that's to say Wolverine, has been in virtually every single X-Men movie. If not literally. I think he has actually literally been in every X-Men movie. Of course he has. He's Wolverine. You know, the non-aging thing. And yet he's aging now. That is actually one of the bits of information that's given across. He is aging. His healing power is demonstrated visually several times to not be working quite the same, which is questionable. Probably my favorite visual cue of the fact that he's not healing anymore is the fact that his hands shake, which is a symptom of nerve damage from claws. No, Deadpool is definitively not an X-Men movie. I don't care what Colossus says. Fox made their opinion on that very clear before the movie came out. They can't double back on it now. Then we have... so in addition to that, of course, it is obviously set a decent period in the future. This is, of course, Future 2 at this point in time, which is the future where Patrick Stewart is still playing Xavier. Now, the thing is, I have to give them some credit. They're going in a wildly different direction with this Wolverine movie. It actually, in many ways, feels like a... how do I put this? It feels like a Old West movie. Like your classic style Old West movie. And I kind of like that, actually. It's a classic style Old West movie with the twist that there's mutants involved. And yet every mutant we've seen involved is actually fairly low-key overall. Oh, and by the way, we have confirmed that Nathaniel Essex, if not the main villain of the movie, is the main villain behind the main villain of the movie. In other words, the Essex Corps is the villainous group they are fighting against in Logan. So that's awesome. For those of you who don't know what that means, well, then you don't know what that means, and that doesn't mean anything. But for those who do know who Nathaniel Essex is, let's just say he's among my favorite characters in the X-Men mythos in general. And I'm excited to see what they do with him in the movies. One other point, by the way, real quick. I just want to make this point clear. I don't mind when they diverge from the source material. I don't, as long as they do something good with it. That's always been my catch. You know, if you're going to diverge from the source material, do something good with it. I have a whole speech I'm going to have to say with this when we get to the Lord of the Rings movies, Ruminations, for example. But if they have... What I mean by this is there's several things about the Logan movie that pretty clearly contradict established canon. And I actually had one comic book fan of mine rant and rage about the fact that A, Logan is older, but B, the fact that his healing powers are not fully regenerating, that they're like running out. Keeping in mind, even in the movies, Logan is old. But the interesting thing about that is... A, the movies have already contradicted and completely ignored and been completely inconsistent with Logan's healing power, so whoop-de-crap. And B, I don't mind as long as they do something good with it. So we'll see if Logan is actually something that's good about it. Moving on. So that's RDR, Switch, Logan, Guardians 2. I think those are all the main things, and it's 9 minutes in, so there we go. Let's go ahead and talk about some of our topics here, shall we? Let's do this, and it is now, cut that off. I don't really have anything to talk about with that. Actually, I kind of do. I do want to continue talking about Red Dead Redemption 2 just for a bit, if you don't mind. Now, if you do mind, then just mute me for a bit. Red Dead Redemption is an amazing game. It has some bugs, it has some issues, and its gameplay design feels even more sandboxy than most sandboxes. However, regardless of that, the underlying story, the thematic significance of several of the events. There's actually two major themes running through Red Dead Redemption: the music, the voice acting. It is an extremely well presented game. It is an extremely well executed game. Whether you're going to like it or not is kind of going to depend on whether you enjoy the actual gameplay presentation or not. But if you do not have an interest in playing it, by God, at least watch it. It is a great game. Now, my reason for bringing this up is that it also was what I like to call a definitive conclusion. Not just of the characters' stories, but of the concept of the Old West. One of the major themes running through Red Dead Redemption was the end of an era. In this case, the era of the Old West. The Old West was going away. In fact, when Red Dead Redemption starts, the Old West is already on its way out the door by the time the game ends. And I'm not going to spoil anything, so please don't spoil anything in chat. But I'm not going to spoil anything. But by the end of the game, the Old West has ended. The Old West has moved on, and now it's the next era after the Old West. Make sense? So, making a Red Dead Redemption 2 as a sequel to that is something I'm automatically already against. If you're going to have an Old West set after that, you either are completely blindly missing the point of the first game, or you're just cashing in on the name brand recognition. And I have been saying for years upon years upon years that the name brand recognition needs to go away. That whole concept of marketing is something that has aggravated me for about 2 decades now, give or take. Ever since the Game Boy was a thing, is pretty much what I can pinpoint that back to. I hate that crap. However, there are several ways you could do a continuation of the Red Dead concept without it actually being a direct sequel. As Vect Machine points out, and this is, of course, the thing that several people have pointed out, it could be a prequel. It could, in fact, be set during the course of, I can't remember his frickin' names, adventures back when the Old West was in its heyday, when that concept was in its heyday. By the way, for the sake of this, I am ignoring reality and real-life history and just focusing on it as it is presented in the Red Dead Redemption universe. Please keep that in mind. Moving on, so it could be set during the main character's actual adventures that happened prior to Red Dead Redemption, that are referred to several times in Red Dead Redemption. And, you know, of course, the fact that there's an entire team of people that kind of leads itself in that direction. Maybe? I don't know. Yes, John, thank you. It's such a boring name, that's why I couldn't remember it. That's the most common theory I've heard tossed out there, that this could be a prequel that's labeled 2 for no reason. It would also, tying in with this theory, this could actually be a proper remake of Red Dead Revolver, which many people have theorized for some while is the events of John Marston's things. It's just Red Dead Revolver is a crap game. I'm sorry, but Red Dead Revolver is a crap game, so seeing a proper remake of that done with RDR is actually pretty cool. Shut up. There's going to be beeping for a bit, because the dishwasher's stupid. It beeps when it's done. I hate that. There's no option to turn that off. Okay, nope, that's gonna bug me. The other possibility, of course, is that they could also be doing something with the concept of Red Dead Redemption. In other words, something that does not actually happen in the same universe, in the same setting, in the same continuity. It could just be another Red Dead game. Now, that doesn't... Well, see, what I mean by that, though, I need to rephrase that, because that's one possibility. But then there's the possibility of this game actually happening in the Red Dead Redemption setting somewhere else. At the same time, in other words, during the same events. Happening, over here or over here, because there are several areas within the Red Dead Redemption canon that you could have this set in, and maybe have some kind of small tie-ins to the actual RDR, but basically, it'd be kind of like, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. For those of you not aware, all 3 of those games actually exist within the same canon, within the same storyline and setting. And there are very small ways, but nevertheless significant, that they connect to each other. It could be like that. This could be a story set over there. These are all possibilities. The only one that really makes me go, ugh, is the idea of it being a direct sequel, which makes me go, I am very hopeful that that is not what we are seeing in this one. There's another game that was announced this week and came out. I've played approximately 3 seconds of it. And that would be Plants vs. Zombies Heroes. I just thought I'd point it out because I wonder how long it's been in development. It is yet another card game. You notice that a lot of card games have started coming out ever since Hearthstone has absolutely exploded in popularity. Not that I'm accusing anyone of anything, but Elder Scrolls Legends Gwent and PvZ Heroes, and I think there's a new Magic the Gathering game that also came out this year, all coming out this year. Yeah, go ahead. Tell me that's a coincidence. That is kind of a concept of the Me Too thing, but I want to talk about that right after I blow my nose. As I was saying, there's several negative things about the Me... Oh, yes, Smite does have a card game, too. I forgot about that one. There's several negative things about the Me Too concept, but there is something positive to say about it. I'm not going to talk about the negative things. Those are so obvious, I don't need to... I don't even need to discuss them. The positive things are... The Me Too syndrome isn't just, oh, that's successful, let's make another one. I mean, that is... we've seen this so many times, right? Hey, Doom was successful. Let's make a ton of Doom clones. Hey, Command and Conquer was successful. Let's make a bunch of Command and Conquer clones. Hey, you know, it continue. I'm not going to go down the whole list, but you know what I mean, right? EverQuest was successful. Let's make a bunch of MMOs. League of Legends is successful. Let's make a bunch of MOBAs. You get the idea. It's common. It's a very... Oh yeah, the sandbox thing is another one. So, in some ways, it is negative, but I do have to point out that in each of those eras, some people have actually managed to bother to put out a good game rather than a clone of the given genre, and we've gotten some really good games as a result of that Me Too concept. I think it boils down, this is just opinion, I think it boils down to the fact that there's two halves of types of developers that make games in the era, Tigzar, of course, is predicting what I was about to say, in the era of, you know, this is the current popular thing. There's people on the left side here who are just cashing in on the fact that this particular type or genre of game is very popular right now, and they just want to make a few quick bucks. And then there's people over here who say, oh, an RTS or whatever. I wonder what we could do with that. Huh. And of course, they do. Then they make out and produce some really good games as a result of that. Again, that brings me to my point with the card game things. While I have, the Me Too thing certainly exists, I haven't actually seen any Me Too-ness of the card games that I have played that have come out this week, or this year, excuse me. From what I've seen of Gwent, it is a genuinely good card game with an actual campaign mode and everything. Elder Scrolls Legend was surprisingly fun, and I've actually had people who have actually want me to continue playing Elder Scrolls Legend on the stream, so I'm considering that. Of course, Hearthstone itself is fine, and again, Hearthstone was not the first. That would probably go to... I don't actually remember its subtitle. It was just called Magic the Gathering. It was an RPG. But then after that, of course, there's Planeswalkers, which started popularizing it. And Plants vs. Zombies Heroes does seem to be a reasonably well-built game. I'll show it off if you want. I have the ability to do that since I can hook my phone up to the computer now. But it's got a few variants to the normal formula, enough to make it not just another Hearthstone clone. So... But yeah, so I'm very curious about that. What I think is happening right now is this is more like people looking at a popular genre and wanting to put out a good game. What I am predicting, and I hope to God I am wrong, is that within the next couple of years we're going to see a bunch of bad clones. No, the Magic the Gathering game predates Duels of the Planeswalkers by many years. I'm not even sure when it came out exactly. I didn't play it when it came out. Anyways, I swear it was 90s. I'm not sure, though. It was back when banding was a normal thing in MTG. Give you a little bit of timeline here. Anyways, so I'll, for the sake of the Loreweek thing, tell you what, I'll show off PvZ Heroes just a little bit, just for a few minutes, at the end of this Loreweek. So we'll put it at the end there. There's the Nintendo Switch. I've really said everything I have to say about the Switch, so I'm not even going to mark that down. We're just going to crop that off. I have two other big topics to mention here. Let me check the time for our timestamps. I want to ask you guys a theoretical question. Lord knows some of my Loreweeks devolved to me just talking. I am reading chat, don't mistake me. But I really want to involve you on this one. I want you to imagine a universe that's different than ours for just a moment. Okay, you ready for this? I want you to imagine a universe in which exclusives with regards to video games do not exist. Every game that is released, by some magic, just bear with me, okay, comes out on the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, the PC, the Wii U, or the Switch, or whatever you want to prefer. It comes out on everything simultaneously. I'm going to just stop here a moment. Some positive reactions, for the most part. You could finally play Bloodborne. I could finally play Bloodborne. Not that I really want to. Spiders. What about handheld? Handheld really is a different thing. A different animal. So let's ignore handheld for this, because that's not what I want to discuss. However, you know what? Just for the sake of this, let's go ahead and presume that all 3DS games also come out on the Vita. And all Vita games also come out on the 3DS. There. So all handhelds have no exclusive, and all consoles and PC have no exclusives. Now, I do have a fairly lengthy topic here, so forgive me. I'm seeing some very interesting responses. I guess I should gesture this way, because you're over there. I should just, switch you. Nah, screw it. So, here's what. There's several reasons why I bring this up. In this imagined reality, do you think there are still people who would prefer the Xbox? Would prefer the PS4? Would prefer the PC? Oh, don't be silly, Gary. Tablets and phones are not handhelds. They're not even gaming devices. I spit on them. Elitism! Pah, pah. No, okay. Fine. For the sake of this discussion, why don't we go ahead and presume that tablets and phones, which actually have proper Bluetooth controller integration, also can have 3DS games and Vita games on them. Let's go ahead and presume that. There would probably be limitations just because of reality, because, there's only so much room in this thing. I mean, Hearthstone alone takes up 4 frickin' gigs. But, yeah. So again, the first question, the most obvious question, would people just prefer one thing or the other? See, if nothing else, I could see discussions, and of course arguments, come up based on controllers. It would no longer be about exclusives or, everyone wants to be on the Xbox. It would be, I prefer the Xbox controller. It is better for me for playing blah, blah, blah. Now, let me give you a direct parallel here. I know someone who's in chat right now, who actually prefers to play Assassin's Creed games with a controller. That's a preference thing. If Assassin's Creed came out on the PC and the PS4, he would prefer the PS4 version, because controller. Now that makes perfect sense to me, really. And I'm totally with that. I actually have the opposite perspective. I actually prefer to play Assassin's Creed with a keyboard. Maybe it's just because I've gotten used to it, because I played the whole series on the keyboard, but it is my preference. I've actually played Assassin's Creed with a controller. It doesn't work in my head. So it's a matter of preference. I get to choose, he gets to choose, we get to choose which particular console, or whatever you want to call these, which particular medium, that's still the wrong word, we play these things on. Make sense? It comes down to choice. I mention this because some people, in my opinion incorrectly, seem to think that if exclusives didn't exist, consoles wouldn't exist. That if the console wars went away, people would say, well, there's no reason to get an Xbox. There's no reason to get a PS4, even though we have already listed 2 reasons why those 2 things could still exist. Maybe not to the same extent that they currently do. But let's pull up, just before we go on with this, let's pull a marketing side of this real quick. Let's pull a budget side of things really quick here, okay? Right now, a lot of time and money, which means money and money, just a different type of money, is being spent on nothing but the console war. How much money is being shelled out to procure exclusives? Because those don't just happen. You don't just say, make your game just for me. You pay someone to make your game just for you. You pay people to go pay people to make the game just for you. That's how that works. That is what Sony has been doing extensively over the past year. It's one of the reasons why Dragon Quest Builders is not currently announced even for coming out on the PC. And FF15, even though the developers have flat out said they wouldn't mind doing a PC port, can't. Right? You with me? Remove all of those expenses, and the question becomes, and I don't know, this is presumption, but I don't know, the question becomes, is the amount of money that saves going to salvage the capacity for consoles to exist? Because the argument, I believe this is a fallacy, the argument is that if the console wars did not have exclusives, the consoles would not exist, because there would be no reason to buy any given console. And yet, if you remove that massive budget that's being spent solely on spitting on the other consoles, basically, when it boils down to it, it's just a stupid pissing contest, really. So if you remove all of that money from it, that's a massive negative from the budget that can go elsewhere or be reducted from the lack of sales that might come as a result of this. Make sense? So even though there's a pretty good chance consoles would be selling less, they would also be spending less. I don't know which one is more equal, though. But I postulate, and I have a fairly large amount of backing when it comes to finances, so just my opinion here, professionally, it is my opinion that consoles would still be able to be soluble? That's the wrong word. Soluble? I can't think of the word. They would still be able of staying afloat financially, even if exclusivity went out the window. And we've already listed two big reasons why, brand recognition and thing. But here's one other thing. This is really important. This is kind of what I'm leading to, okay? What is the benefit of a console over a PC? Please don't incite any console versus PC wars. I think that's just as stupid as the consoles versus other consoles thing. That's not what this is about. What is the difference between a console and a PC? What is the benefit of a console over a PC? Now I'm going to pause for a moment. I have my answers, but I want to see what chat says. Exactly, Gary. That is exactly what I'm saying. Think about how much money is blown on the console wars right now. Someone says cost. Two people say cost. Ease of use and cost. Don't have to upgrade. Ease of use. Less place and time required. Cheaper. Convenience. Price. Cost. Ease of use. Bingo. You're hitting it right on the head. What does it take, theoretically, to play a PS4 game? I have a PS4. Hook it up to the TV. Put the CD in. Go. Right? What is the benefit of an Xbone? Same thing. What's the benefit of a PC? Well, there are benefits to a PC. Huge benefits to a PC. And yet, there are also huge negatives to a PC. Imagine, if you will, you are someone who does not know as much about constructing PCs as I do. Or several people in chat do. You don't know what the best parts are, how to actually put it together, so you're probably going to buy a prefab PC. Now, for those of you not aware, let's just make this very, very clear. Prefab PCs are always going to be more expensive and worse than a PC you make yourself. That's just universal. That's been universal for decades. That has not changed. So you're going to spend a lot more money to get something that's a worse product. I'm getting to that, Zawan. Hang on. So, there are huge benefits to having a PC for gaming. But there are also huge detriments. You remove cost and convenience from the equation. Yeah, no kidding. And of course, there are opinions with regards to constructing. How many people think an ATI card is better than an NVIDIA card? How many people think an NVIDIA card is better than an ATI card? How many people think... I suddenly lost the name. An Intel is better than the other one. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm sorry. And, of course, then there's the things with making sure your game works with your PC, patching it, and all that fun stuff. There are hassles involved with PC gaming. That is a reality. Along with it, you get huge benefits. Massive gaming library. The PC gaming library blows every other library ever made in all of history out of the water. There are more PC games than every other console combined. AMD, thank you. And Radeon as well, of course. And yeah, motherboard choices. There are huge differences in perspective when it comes to motherboard choices. And should you SLI or not? Is another big question. Some people disagree on that point. Should you have a dual monitor setup? You get my point. I'm not going to go into every detail. There's tons of variances with regards to constructing your PC. Point being, and yeah, what Progue says is true. There are fanboys for computer parts and computer part manufacturers, just like there are for everything. And there's hate boys for them as well. So again, lots and lots of negatives. Okay, maybe the Atari. Maybe not, though. Point being, the library is huge, and there's tons of customization. The fact that I can get E.T. on the Atari playing on my PC right now, without much issue, really, says something for the PC library. Now, I don't actually have much else to say about the PC. What I'm really talking about is the consoles. Specifically, I'm focusing in on the Xbone and the PS4. This is going to tie into my point about the Switch in a moment here. The Xbone and the PS4... Well, let me actually rewind it a bit. The PS3 and the Xbox 360's main advantages over PC was plug and play. You are paying for plug and play. And if you are just interested in playing a few games, or you're just interested in playing some games with your friends, or you'd really like to play KOTOR, why was KOTOR so successful? Granted, it was a great game. But that's not actually why it was financially successful. It was financially successful because it was the first game of its type to really be broadly marketed on a console. All of a sudden, hundreds, thousands, I don't know how many, lots of people were able to play KOTOR that otherwise wouldn't be able to. Think about it. Point being, that plug-and-play functionality is a huge aspect of consoles, and why I think consoles would still exist, even if everything, exclusive-wise, was removed. Now we bring up the next point. Why are the manufacturers involved? Why are the developers involved? Why are the people who are actually making the decisions involved abandoning these advantages? The Xbone and the PS4 are more like a PC than consoles have ever been. They are, in fact, miniature, not that great PCs. And of course, I'm not going to even get into a rant about Sony's whole, propriety grab. Let's not even get into that. And I'm going to pull up an example. Granted, Jim Sterling already brought it up this week. He got there before me. Whatever. Mafia 3. How long does it take Mafia 3 to patch on the console? How long does it take to set up and install? How much space on that console does it take up? How much does it move aside to make room for one game? On a PC, a large game install is an issue, but not really a big issue. It's an issue that is solvable. Big downloads? Yeah, that's not a big problem, because it's a PC. We're kind of used to that. It's one of the negatives for having a PC game. Big patches and big install times, right? Exactly. My whole point here, my entire point here, is that the PS4 and the Xbone are losing the only thing that makes them consoles. There's still arguably a market for that, but what I want to know is why? Why are they throwing away their best advantages? This leads me nicely into Nintendo, actually. This is all still the same topic, really. Wii U, right? When I grabbed Paper Mario Stickers, or not Paper Stickers, Paper Mario Color Splash, how much install time did I have to play that? I'll just go ahead and tell you. None. When I grabbed, what's a recent one? Theater Rhythm. That's actually a bad example. Yoshi's Island Woolly World. Or, the Star Fox Zero game that came out recently. It was plug and play. There's one other key difference here, and this is very important. The Wii screwed up on this one, but the Wii U did not. The Wii U does not artificially cap how much information it can receive through its internet connection at a time. Think about that for a moment. I'm just going to leave that sentence there. There's still some unverified facts about that, but we do know the Wii U does not cap its intake, and yeah. My reason for bringing this up, and again, this ties back into the Switch. This is one of the reasons why I say Nintendo is such a completely different market than the console market, because Nintendo still makes consoles. Nintendo still makes... I don't know how else to say that sentence. I'm just going to repeat myself, so I'm not going to. Now, of course, people are going to nitpick and disagree with this, and that's fine. Go ahead. All I have to say is a game that just came out, put it into the Wii U, hit go, versus a game that just came out, you put it into PS4, you wait a day. Why then go in the direction of the Switch? Why try to have a different thing? I've kind of already talked about the Switch Pro, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit right now. Why try to make this thing like the other consoles? Why try to enter the console wars? Why even bother? Why not continue to have a separate market from the console wars? Why not continue to have the overall functionality of what Nintendo games actually offer? Why not actually have... I mean, they're even already making the switch to cartridges for the thing, which I do personally think is a positive thing. I do. There's... it just takes that long to install and update Volcanto. There's already... okay, let me make my point here. This is not going to make my point perfectly, but just bear with me, okay? 3DS cartridge, right? Now, I forget exactly how much information on here, forgive me. But I have an SD card right now that is about a fourth this size that carries a lot more information than is on it. I think the largest SD card I personally have is 50 gigs. That's plenty of space for most games. And then, of course, there's other benefits. I'm not going to get into the whole technology thing. It is my opinion... Let me put that forth. It is my opinion that right now, flash drives, USB drives, SD cards have basically bypassed optical discs. Optical discs absolutely took over when the PS1 came out. I agree with that. I think Nintendo was stupid for clinging to cartridges when the cartridge technology wasn't there. But cartridge technology never actually stopped keeping going. Apparently you can get a 120 SD card, so there you go. The cartridge technology never stopped because of the PC, actually. And because of the PC market. And so, at this point in time, it is my opinion that cartridges are the way to go with that. Okay. So we've already got one advantage the Switch has over the other two, but what about download and install times? Are they still going to do that? This brings me to my next point. This is a little rambly, forgive me, this is all related. Do you think the Switch should try to be in direct competition with the PS4 and the Xbone, like they apparently want it to be, which means it'll have all of the benefits and detriments of the two consoles? Or do you think the Switch should try to be in direct competition by actually being plug and play? Now note that the latter is more difficult to pull off, especially in the modern era, but still. Because if the Switch comes out and has all the benefits of being a console, a real console, a plug-and-play console. You buy it, $300, grab a game, plug it in, done. Then regardless of all those many extensive discussions, I have seen so many discussions on Reddit, on forums, on boards about how the Switch cannot possibly be better than the Xbone or the PS4 graphically, and how its hardware is going to be garbage and junk, and blah, 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 blah. Regardless of all of that, that plug-and-play benefit will give them a decisive edge over both other consoles, regardless of graphics fidelity. There are certain people in certain markets, there's a circle of people here who just want that plug-and-play crap. Apparently there's a terabyte SD card now. Holy crap. I don't know what Nintendo wants. I can only presume, Tigzar. But the fact that they flat out openly said this is not intended, hey Spirit, to replace the Wii U and the 3DS, the fact that they have openly, by the way they're releasing this, this is clearly intended to be considered part of the console wars. I'm not going to go over every single individual point. I've kind of already discussed a lot of this on show already. The point being, the way they're releasing this, this is clearly designed by someone in charge at Nintendo to be in opposition to the Xbox 4, or the Xbone, and the PS4. And as Omni points out, some people will care about the graphics fidelity. That's another market. Some people will get the Scorpio, because of the three consoles, it's going to have the best tech. And some people are going to say, well, I don't care that much about the min-maxing, but all my exclusives are on the PS4. But again, let's move the exclusives out of this situation, shall we? Seriously, let's move the exclusives thing out. That's why I started this whole discussion with remove exclusives from the picture. If exclusives are not part of the equation, and you have to pick a choice right now, let's say you have whatever money, you have a token. This token can be exchanged for a PS4, an Xbone, or a Switch, and you can't turn it back in for money, and you can't sell the console, and you can't give it away. It's for you, blah, blah, blah. Please answer the spirit of the question rather than the little word of the question. You have to pick one of the three consoles. It's for free. No exclusives. Which do you pick? I'm very honestly curious what people will say to this one. And why, if applicable. Maybe you prefer the Xbox controller. Maybe you prefer the PS4 controller. Maybe you like the idea of the Switch being a handheld. Let's assume that you will be killed if you don't pick one, Lurker. Answer the question. Alright, Tigzar, you will also be killed if you do not answer the spirit of the question. You cannot choose a PC. The PC doesn't exist! Q snapped away. No, Darkrai. Dreamcast. Lurker dies. I am seeing a lot of varied answers, and that's good. That's actually what I wanted to see. That's what I was predicting I would see. Because a lot of people would be picking... Bragwin also dies. A lot of people would be picking something based on their own various reasons. You know, I've seen some people say specifically for the controllers. I've seen a few people say for the portability they go with the Switch. It's imported. Oh, okay, I see what you mean, Gary. I was like, what? I actually agree with the one's comment. My answer is the Switch, but it should be obvious why. The handheld capacity combined with the multiple different types of control style appeals to me. I don't actually really like a PS4 controller that much. I've never handled the Xbone one. I can't comment on that. But for me, controller is a big deal, and graphics don't matter at all. So the hardware behind it doesn't mean anything to me. So personally, I would go with the Switch because of that part of it. And of course, portability. That is true. Now, what Tigzar points out is true. We know very little about the Switch. Except we don't need to for the case of this question. Remember, exclusives has been removed from the situation, and we can basically predict that the Switch is going to be about on par with the PS4 the Xbone now, probably below overall capacity of the PS4 Pro and of the Scorpio. So that's fairly likely thing. So what we do know about the Switch is the screen, the dock up to the TV, and the controllers, which when exclusives are removed and hardware is understood, what more information do you need? Yeah, I actually agree with Volcanto. The idea of being able to play... So, real quick thing. I don't think I have one handy. Let me check real quick. I might. No, I don't think I do, because I haven't had to play a Wii game in a while. The thing that I disliked most about the Wii controllers, so you've got the main controller and the nunchuck, right? The cable between them is only about this wide. So even if I'm playing like this, which is actually what I like to play the Wii on, I have to do this. Now imagine if that cable's not there. This is something I always wanted to do on the Wii, to be able to play like this, see? You know? Kind of like this. That appeals to me. Just by itself, right there. That kind of playstyle. And of course there's the Pro controller, which looks pretty good. Although you'll have to pay extra for that. Fair enough. That would be a negative in the Switch's side. You have to pay extra for the type of controller you may want. PAX has flat out said that he likes the look of the PS4, the Switch controller quite a lot. The Pro one. He may even buy it. But here's another question: does the Wii U's Pro controller work for the Switch's controller? So granted, we don't know everything. I'll give you that, but you get my point. This is one of the reasons why I consider the whole console versus PC, console versus other console thing to be ridiculous. Because when you really get the only thing, in my personal opinion, that they really have versus each other is the exclusives. That's why I started this whole discussion with that. You remove the exclusives from the equation, and all of a sudden, there's some interesting choices there, but they bear down to basically preference. For example, do you prefer having a superior machine? Do you want the increased hardware? Then you should get a Scorpio. Do you want something that has a nice front end, or a nice, or not front end, excuse me, a nice back end, a crap front end, but nevertheless has a a comfortable controller setup, PS4, etc., etc. You get my point? I have no idea exactly what the Switch is intended to do. It is my hope that they are not doing what I think they're doing, and it is my hope that they're doing what they are probably not doing. And I've already talked about that. I don't need to rehash that. That's just repetition. And I do like portability a lot. Oh, but by the way, for those of you not aware, the common information running around is that 3-hour battery life. For those of you not aware, that pretty much matches this thing. This thing right here has a 3-hour battery life unless you get the upgraded battery pack, which I'm actually thinking about buying soon, for obvious reasons. If I could shed one final thing here really quick. What do you mean by that, Smoking Jay? One of the things that I do actually like about the idea of portability, I have actually tried to, for example, play the Wii U on the couch, or whatever, and I can't, because the Wii U's range on this controller is pathetic. Because it was never intended to do that. No, it is not confirmed, Prog. It was never intended to be like that. Even though, in many ways, this is basically a handheld. It's a large handheld, but you can do this. You can switch the game to this and play the game just right here like this. And it's a great control. I love this control. I really do. It's very comfortable, very relaxing. It fits my hands perfectly. It's nice and comfortable on the edges, etc., etc. But I'm limited on range. I could lay down on my bed, and that's about it with regards to this. If I could take my Wii U and play this, however far away, that would be nice. If I could just take this when I'm going to deal with something else, that would be nice. And admittedly, that portability does appeal to me. Of course, this comes down to preference, but in my situation, downstairs, Dakota. In my situation, having that portability for a Wii U game is something that appeals to me, and thus would lean me towards the Switch. And the lack of backwards compatibility kind of sucks, but it was expected. Oh, one last thing about the Switch. One of the questions, the single thing, there's two things I've seen most commented on when it comes to the Switch. One is, the hardware can't possibly beat the other two consoles. That's the first thing. The hardware discussions about the Switch are ridiculous. But the second one, I shouldn't even call them discussions. Ranting, yelling matches. But the second thing that I've seen most commonly about the Switch is, why Skyrim Remastered? It's usually said in a derogatory tone. Why mention a X years old game to highlight your new console? What's the point of doing that? I don't remember. I don't remember the difference. I don't remember how old Skyrim is. Forgive me. I'm sure someone will say it in a minute. I'm glad you're liking it, Lucian. Yeah, I've heard the Tegra thing. We'll see. To my knowledge, nothing is 100% confirmed about hardware, but again, I don't care that much. Here's the thing. The answer is actually really obvious. That is Skyrim Remastered, which came out this year. Now, Skyrim itself is an older game, but they're showing Skyrim Remastered for two big reasons. I can definitively say this. I don't need to put opinion on this asterisk. Two reasons. One, it's a game coming out now. Skyrim Remastered. Even though Skyrim itself is old, Skyrim Remastered, the game that's coming out this year, will be playable on the Switch. Second, and yeah, as Baronessa points out, the requirements for Remastered are much higher than Skyrim. Second, and this is also very important, they're showcasing a game you don't associate with Nintendo. Most people, when they think Nintendo, they think Mario and Zelda and all the other first-party things. And for good reason. Nintendo has always actually primarily sat on its first-party development for a very long time. I think the last console they've really been third-party friendly with was the GameCube, I'm pretty sure. You could argue it's the SNES, but regardless. So when you think of Nintendo, you think first-party stuff. You don't think Skyrim. Showing Skyrim on a Nintendo console shows them we're opening the doors a bit. We're trying for a different approach to the Switch. We want different people, different types of games, different accessible games to be on the Switch. And this ties in beautifully with the fact that there were no children in the advert. I hope you noticed that. Because it's the first time that's been true in years. Possibly ever, actually. Nintendo has always been marketed to a younger audience, even though it actually is just as popular with young adults and adults. But this actual specific thing... No, I'm not, because this is different, Alder. Screw you. There's the hands thing. This specific thing is being marketed towards people who have disposable income. And I hate to point this out, but there's one other interesting thing about the Switch's marketing thing, is that it's aimed for people in their 30s. Does anyone here know what's significant about 30 years ago? Very good. People who are 30 now, or in their 30s now, were playing the NES and the SNES when it came out. Think about it. Hi, Formosa. So that's three big reasons why they wanted to showcase this. Because they did, yeah, we are quite literally the Nintendo generation. That is, I think we could actually put a label on that pretty accurately. And people in their 30s, statistically speaking, do have the most disposable income. Statistically speaking. So I hate to point this out, but I think the Switch is going to succeed. I really do. And you know what? I hope it's actually good enough to warrant that success. Oh, by the way, the other question I've been asked most often, ever since the announcement in the last few days, is, are you getting a Switch the day of? To which my answer is no. I don't have enough information to decide that yet. But if you put a gun to my head and made me decide right now, yes, I would get a Switch. For the same reason I got the Wii U and the 3DS, even when both libraries were garbage. Because I had faith. Now, I knew even at the time that was a risk. Gary can attest with it. Gary and I both got a 3DS when they had like 2 games on them. But that was a very worthwhile investment. And if they're really pushing third-party support, on top of their strong first-party development, I see no problems. So yes. But again, I'm not actually sold yet. That was just a gun to the head thing. This brings me to another interesting topic, semi-related. Nintendo's usual approach to marketing is we announce it relatively soon to when the game's coming out. Probably the one egregious exception to this is the new Zelda game, which they announced literally over a year in advance, which in my opinion was a very big mistake on their part. But aside from a few exceptions, Nintendo's approach tends to be in X amount of, in a fairly, thank you, Breath of the Wild, I can never think of the name of it, in a fairly small amount of period of time, this new release is coming out. This is October, right? So November, December, January, February, March. 5 months and some change until the Switch comes out. We actually briefly touched on this topic in an earlier stream this week. And I wanted to just touch on this briefly because I don't think I've ever really had a Loreweek discussion on this thing. Pokemon on the Switch would be awesome. It would also be our first real Pokemon game on a console, even though it's basically handled. But moving on. So, that's Nintendo's approach. They tend to go for pretty soon releases. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. There are advantages for the long play, the short play, and the middle play with regards to release scheduling. In other words, if I have a game coming out in X time, I can announce it a year in advance, 6 months in advance. Well, actually, let's put it 2 years in advance, a year in advance, or 6 months in advance. 6 months is usually pretty close. It's pretty rare you see an announcement for something less than 6 months in advance, but it has happened, and Nintendo has done that more than once. No, those don't count, Omni, as we all know. So, let's talk about the benefits of each really quick. The benefit of the 2 year in advance thing, it gives people plenty, the long announcement, in other words, it gives you plenty of time to prepare for it, prepare your investments, prepare your finances, to have money set aside for when the time comes in order to be able to purchase it. It also gives you tons of time to have that spike of interest, which may get you interested in other products that are either out now or about to come out. And of course, usually it goes like this. You start out hyped, you dip, and then it comes close to release and you get back hyped again, right? So, and then the game comes out. The advantage to the short range thing is there's no wait period. The hype never dips. And then the game's out, basically. So you are excited about it, and then it comes out, and then you get to enjoy it. And there's none of that horrible waiting period, because some people really, really hate to just sit around thinking, oh God, when is X game coming out? I can't wait for blah to come out. How many times have you or someone you know said, I can't wait for blah to come out? And it wasn't coming out for like another year or whatever, right? Yeah, and so there's several, the Hype Brothers, there's several advantages to the short range thing. It's like, yeah, oh God, and it's coming out like next month. And that's actually pretty awesome. And of course, this is kind of, there's actually a relatively few examples of this. But Nintendo did this once. I forget the exact game, but it was one of the Mario games on the Wii where it was like, hey, this game's coming out. And by the way, it's coming out next month. And it was like, oh, God, yes, go, buy. And that was awesome. Because there was no waiting time. There was no fatigue. When you have a short release time, there's no fatigue. You're hyped, or hoiped, and then you get the game. And then you can see if it's any good or not. But then, there's the middle ground. Now, the middle ground is, in my opinion, the best way to go. The middle ground is basically the 6-month-ish range. Anywhere around the 6 months range. Like they're doing with the Switch. The Switch is coming out in March. We have plenty of time. 5 months and some change, is plenty of time to go ahead and get some money going together in order to be able to afford it. And it's not too long so that, we'll probably still have a dip in excitement and hype, or hoip, until we get there, but it won't be nearly as bad as certain other things, right? And of course, the negatives of all three are pretty obvious. People in chat are already pointing out the negative I was about to bring up next, which is the fatigue problem. When you announce something forever in advance, it's just like, okay, that sounds cool. And then time passes. Mass Effect Andromeda still doesn't actually have a release date. It was pushed back already at least once that I'm aware of. Kingdom Hearts 3. Final Fantasy 15. I mean, seriously, there are so many examples, and it's so obvious I don't even feel the need to discuss it. The fatigue that comes from long releases. But I have an immediate example right now. Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay. Oh, we know nothing, and it's not even coming out until end of next year. My interest evaporated the moment I heard that. I'm tired of that kind of... This is just me personally now speaking, but for me personally, I hate that crap. I hate being told something's coming out in a year. I hate being told something's coming out eventually. I hate no release date, not even a scheduled release date, not even a predicted, just, oh yeah, it's coming out eventually. Cyberpunk 2077, when that game gets closer to coming out, I'll probably be more interested in it, but right now I couldn't give a crap because it's this fatigue problem. Now, that being said, for me personally, I like the short release. If they had announced the Switch in January or February and it's coming out in March, I would have been like, yes! Go buy! But I do have to admit, in the interest of total honesty, I get why short releases are a bad thing for many people. I totally understand that, because I'm not exactly the wealthiest person in the world either right now. I have money that is always set aside specifically for purchases for entertainment and video games. That's been true ever since I was like 22. But I totally get it. You don't always have the money ready to go for that. Shoving aside $60 is actually a thing. That is something that actually takes time and consideration and budgeting. I get that. I get the idea, especially for a large purchase like the Switch. If the Switch was announced in February, they probably would have hurt their sales, because people were like, "Oh God, I can't get $300 or whatever." We don't actually know the price in a month, right? I understand that. Even though that is my ideal, I totally get it. This is why I espouse the positivity on the middle ground, the 6-month-ish range, because 6 months is a decent chunk of time to be prepped for it. But not so long that you get fatigued about it, you know? But that's just my discussion. I want to know what you guys think. This is just me talking. What do you guys think about the release schedule date and the positives and negatives? Is there something I'm not even bringing up? There's two main points I've brought up. There's the fatigue for hype and hoip, and then there's the finances. Is there something I'm missing? So there you go. There's something I missed. Prog points out a good thing. It is kind of my job to watch gaming news right now. And I've also always had my finger on the pulse, is what I like to call it. But an average gamer probably wouldn't even hear about the Switch coming out until they saw the signs in the store, which would probably be after February. So they would have even less time to prepare. So that's valid too. And the longer period of time that has passed between its announcement, the more likely more people will have heard about it. I can't do 2 years. People keep asking me, "Are you excited about, Kingdom Hearts 3?" No. Why not? Because we don't even have a release date yet. I wasn't excited for FF15 until a few months ago. It's still not out. Also, I don't have a PS4, but yeah. Yeah, delays to the game are another thing, too. Although there are other things about that I don't want to get into. There's two aspects to delaying a game: development and marketing, and I don't want to get into either of those topics. Sometimes a delay happens because they need to work on something. Valid, but it happens. Sometimes a delay happens because they want to polish the game more. That's actually pretty rare, but it does happen. Sometimes they delay because they want to hit a particular window for purchasing, like, say, the holiday season. There's some fallacies about the holiday season for marketing that I'm not even going to get into right now. I'm just reading everyone's comments here real quick. I'll have to take your word on that, Tigzar. I can't even understand that perspective to me. Yeah. Here's another one, by the way. Star Citizen. Think about it. Star Citizen is another of those. Well, I was pretty excited about it when they announced it. How long has it been now? I don't even pay attention to Star Citizen anymore. I don't. I have stopped watching news about it. I don't care. Let me know when it's actually coming out. The fallacies of marketing in the holiday season. I'll try to discuss this very, very briefly, because I know I could really get into marketing and budgeting. Trust me, I could. There's a fallacy that if you release something during the holiday, in time for the holiday season, that you will make more money net. And that is possible, but generally is not actually true. Because there's additional money that the companies involved have to spend to market the game, put it out there, pay for the distribution, specific distribution. Not distribution is the wrong word. Pay for presentation in the actual stores and pay for the sales involved, and then they move more units. The gross income might be more. I'll grant that, but the net income either is barely breaking average or less. There's not really a lot of financial benefit to rush something to come out or change something to come out during the holiday season. And as Omni points out, very good point, competition is a huge problem during the holiday season. A huge problem. So that's I'm not going to keep going. But the fallacy of the holiday release is something that's been true for many, many years. This is nothing new. The general idea overall is that the holiday season may generate sales it wouldn't otherwise generate. Like, for example, a grandmother buying a game for her grandson. That's just a very basic example. But there's so much involved in making that happen that it doesn't really net pay off, except under certain circumstances. Obviously, there's always going to be exceptions. Is Blizzard doing anything with Diablo 3? Good question. We'll find out in 2 weeks. There's a Diablo thing happening, yes, in 2 Fridays from now. I agree that Black Friday should not exist. I think Black Friday detracts from the universe. I hate to say it like that, but that's my honest opinion on that. I really do think Black Friday detracts from the universe. There's also the fact, if I could just add one more thing here. The holiday season, Tigzar just pointed out something, and you're not the first person I've heard say that. The general concept is during the holiday season, you do the big expenses, right? You buy the big things, then you buy the more little things otherwise, with regards to TVs or entertainment or clothes or whatever, right? But you don't... Again, that doesn't really even out to a net increase in overall sales, and it actually adds to the competition problem, because you're only really going to be able to buy one big thing, right? So let's say 3 big things. 3 people are pushing out a new console or a new TV or a new sound system or whatever for the holiday season. Which one do you pick? You're artificially limiting and adding stress to your buyer situation in the hopes that they will pick you. It's basically rolling the dice. It's gambling. Let's just say it how it is. It's gambling. Black Friday trampling is not a thing, no. No. All the stories about Black Friday being some big, horrible thing, no. Black Fridays tend to be long and boring, and often cold. There's the reality. Alright, so let's go ahead and cut off the music here. Someone asked me... We're done. I'll go ahead and make a timestamp for this. I mentioned the fallacy, though. There's one other aspect of the fallacy. I'm sorry, I got to keep talking about this. There's one other aspect of the fallacy that is relevant. And that is the fact that there are people who make release schedule decisions at companies who believe in the fallacy, believe in the holiday release thing, and therefore will push. Let's use games as a specific example because it's a great example. Will push games to come out before, in time for the holiday release. I can't even begin to count how many times that has resulted in buggy releases, or early releases, or unpolished products, or just plain bad games. Or games that could have been better, games that were voyagers. In other words, great potential, but didn't follow through on it. Because they just had to hit that window. This is also very true in movies, by the way. A lot of movies have been made or sold because of, gotta hit that movie, that movie window. Which is funny because in movies it's actually more the summer blockbuster, but that's a whole other topic. Let's not get into that. Let me go ahead and get rid of this and add something else to the equation. Should I remember what it's called? I haven't used this in a while. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. I don't remember what it's called. Give me a sec. Not actually looking at chat for the moment. I'm trying to find this thing. What? There it is. Okay. Go to Blasted Lands, Lucian. And then go to Outland. That's where you want to go. Yes, my grandmother was finally released from the frickin' hospital last night. Finally. Would I recommend StarCraft 2 to someone? Abso-frickin-lutely. Without question or hesitation. Especially since it actually has things like, the casual mode difficulty for people who aren't even good at RTSs. How do I... Trying to remember how to hook this stupid frickin' thing up. It should be able to. Should see it right there. I may have to actually allow it. Come on. Okay. We'll do this the other way then. What is Eternal Crusade, Mind Blast? Oops, right. God dang it. There we go. Apparently Omni does not want to watch Blizzard games. Sadness. By the way, Blizzard games are going to be a norm when we're not doing a premiere run every Sunday. The vote was overwhelmingly yes. So just a heads up on that. Why is this not working? Why isn't this working? I already did that, Zuan. Also, I can't do that without copyright issues. No, Bella. I'm terrible at Hearthstone, and I just don't have the interest in getting good at it. Okay, this is odd. This was working the other day. And by the other day, I mean a few months ago. Alright, hang on. Maybe I wasn't using this one? Technical support, featuring the Lore Runner. Depends on my mood, Baronessa. There we go. Found it. Took me a moment. I'll probably have to resize this in a moment. All right. There we go. So, this is the new Plants vs. Zombies, there it is, card game that just came out. In many ways, very similar to Hearthstone. It's got a couple of different things. For example, there are actually 5 lanes to play through, and a couple other things. I'll show you off in a moment here. Unfortunately, it looks like I actually can't show off what I want to, so we'll do this here. Here's one of the new mechanics being showcased right here. By the way, this game is free at the moment, for those curious. So I want to showcase something here. Got a bunch of 1-1s here, so this is one thing that is very different and actually completely changes the gameplay mechanic of this game. So I'm about to push a 1-1 against his 1-1, right? Even though he goes first, I still get a chance to go. In other words, it's not you go, I go, it's all turns resolve at the same time, and that does actually change the strategy quite a bit. Oh, apparently you get that, immediately. Okay. Yes, that's great. I guess I have to, don't I? Well, no, I've got 4. I could do that. Oh, that's just a draw. Got it. Amphibious, of course. Am I the only person who still enjoys Plants vs. Zombies? Weird question. No! Financially speaking, that is not true, Zoan. Terrain types. It's another variance in your standard Hearthstone style thing here. Yes, yes, I know. You're not Lucian. I suppose I don't get the taking it too far comment. I mean, nobody says that about... Well, okay, that's true, but... I mean, if a new Zelda game comes out, people say, ugh, why do they just give up on Zelda already? Granted, I think their move towards the mobile market was a mistake, in my opinion. Just my opinion. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out that part of the appeal of the mobile things is that it means there are very few mobile games I can play for free. Oh, that's great. Oh, screw off. Okay, fine. Fine. Very few mobile games I can play that are actually fun. But I suppose I'm probably just a little bit too positive. Either way, this looks like... To give my opinion in brief about this. This is an interesting take on your standard Hearthstone-style thing, and something I'll probably play in the future in those 5-minute breaks I have while watching Minizan or something. But, yeah. I suppose part of that is my desire to make use of a game that, or excuse me, a console, the phone, that in my honest opinion does not have a lot of use being a gaming console. I'm sorry, Bella. There's also stacks in this game. It's part of the thing. I agree, I can't stand playing a game with touch controls. I never have. There are extremely few games where it works, and even there, it's frustrated me. Do you know how many levels in Plants vs. Zombies 2, which is very hard, by the way, compared to the first game? How many levels I've lost because of interface failure, because I tried to drag a thing here, and it ended up on the wrong square, and I lost the entire match because of that? Maybe that's just my fault, I have giant, meaty sausage fingers, but doesn't make it any less irritating. To me. By the way, the story behind this game, thus far, is that Dr. I forget his name came up with the new ultimate power to make his zombies finally win against the player. He would zap them and give them superpowers. But of course, it went out of control and gave the plants superpowers too. And now they're playing cards. There's also some things about the Plants vs. Zombies series that I could mention that have to do with basically your typical mobile game stuff. I don't know how else to say it, but it's the deceitful marketing thing, trying to trick you or convince you into spending more money on the game. Now I have actually spent... Oh, there we go. Here's the plot. So, yeah. I think it's pulling at like 15 frames per second or something, because it's fine on the phone. Or maybe the stream's lagging? I don't know, it looks fine to me. There's really nothing new to mention here. They've got your standard quests. You get quests over and over again. You get specific hero quests for doing certain things with them that gives you bonuses. There's gems that you use to... Yeah, that's great. Go away. There's gems that you use to buy stuff. I'm still tutorialized at the moment, apparently. You get the idea. I don't really have much else to share here, but this is this game. It is free right now. Plants vs. Zombies Heroes. I see it every time I open Plants vs. Zombies 2. So, nothing else to add. There you go. With that, the lore week is over. But, there is one thing left. Apparently, it's 12/26, Sunday, October the 23rd. There's one thing left to talk about here. Let me move myself back over here. Who out there has ever heard of a game called Homeworld 2? Anyone remember that game? Well, you guys have a little bit more time to vote on the game we'll be streaming for the rest of the day. But a friend of mine was like, hey, why don't you get revenge on Homeworld 2? And I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. I've rolled my sleeves up, and we're going to get revenge on Homeworld 2. I'm actually going to restart the stream, though, and I'm going to cut off the YouTube recording, so...